frozen heart. The billionaire's vow shattered by unexpected love. Welcome back to Love Scene Diaries, where passion meets destiny in stories that will captivate your heart. Today's tale explores how the coldest hearts can thaw in the most unexpected ways. Prepare yourself for a journey of ice-cold rejection, burning desire, and the power of love to break even the strongest vows. The morning light sliced through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Westbrook Tower, casting long shadows across the pristine marble floors of the 50th floor executive suite. Alexander Westbrook stood motionless at the edge of his glass empire, hands clasped behind his back, surveying the city below like a king overlooking his domain. At 32, he commanded not just the skyline's most impressive building, but a tech empire valued at billions. "Mr. Westbrook?" His assistant's voice trembled slightly. "The board is waiting." Alex didn't turn immediately. He never did. The pause, 3 seconds, no more, no less, was part of the carefully constructed persona that had earned him the nickname the Frost King in business circles. When he finally faced her, his steel mule eyes revealed nothing. "Tell them I'll be there when I'm ready, Vanessa." She nodded quickly and retreated, the click of her heels fading down the hallway. Alex straightened his already impeccable tie and allowed himself a moment of reflection. 6 years ago, he'd been a different man. Ambitious still, but open, trusting, perhaps even naive. The memory of Elise's laughter echoed briefly in his mind before he shut it down with practiced efficiency. "I never loved you, Alex. Did you really think someone like me would marry someone like you if it weren't for the money?" The boardroom fell silent as Alex entered. 12 executives, each accomplished in their own right, straightened imperceptibly in their chairs. He didn't smile as he took his seat at the head of the table. He rarely smiled these days. "The Riverside District acquisition. Where do we stand?" His voice was calm, measured, betraying none of the intensity that drove him. Marcus Chen, his head of acquisitions, cleared his throat. "We've secured options on 80% of the properties. The remaining holdouts include a family restaurant, 2 residential buildings, and—" He hesitated. "A children's art therapy center." The center again. Alex's expression didn't change, but his finger tapped once against the polished table. "What's the issue?" "Public sentiment, sir. The center works with traumatized children, many from underprivileged backgrounds. The director has been rallying community support, getting media attention." "Show me." A video appeared on the wall screen, a woman with warm brown eyes and an earnest expression speaking passionately to a reporter. "These children have already lost so much. The center is their safe space where they begin to heal through art. Where are they supposed to go?" Something flickered in Alex's eyes, so briefly that no one at the table caught it. "Olivia Martinez," Marcus continued. "She founded the center 5 years ago. No formal business training, but she's surprisingly effective at mobilizing support." "She's becoming a problem," Rebecca from PR added. "Social media is picking up the story. Save Heart Space is trending locally." Alex studied the frozen image of Olivia Martinez on the screen. There was something in her eyes, a fire, a conviction, that he recognized from another lifetime, before. Buy her out. Everyone has a price. He turned to his CFO. "What's the center worth?" "Property value is approximately $1.2 million, but the operation itself—" "Offer her $2 million. If she refuses, go to 3, no higher." Alex's tone made it clear the matter was settled. James Harrington, the oldest board member and the only one who remembered Alex before he became the Frost King, leaned forward. "Alex, perhaps we should consider alternatives. Relocating the center rather than shutting it down could generate positive PR and—" "We're not in the charity business, James." Alex's voice dropped several degrees. "Sentiment doesn't build empires, decisive action does." The room temperature seemed to plummet. No one spoke. "The Riverside project will proceed as planned. The center, like everything else in that district, will be demolished to make way for Westbrook Innovation Park." Alex stood, buttoning his jacket with one fluid motion. "I'll personally meet with Ms. Martinez if necessary. Sometimes people need to understand that progress can't be stopped by emotional appeals." As the executives filed out, Marcus lingered. Sir, there's a community meeting tomorrow about the redevelopment. Ms. Martinez will be there with her supporters. Would you like me to handle it? Alex considered for a moment. No, I'll attend myself. It's time to end this distraction. Alone again, he returned to the window, watching the city below. The art center was barely visible from this height, a small, colorful building amid the urban landscape he planned to transform, insignificant. Yet something about Olivia Martinez's determined expression stayed with him. 6 years ago, he'd made a vow after Elise's betrayal. Never again would he let emotion cloud his judgment. Never again would he let anyone close enough to see the man behind the empire. The vow had served him well, building walls that protected him as he built his fortune. Have you ever built walls around your heart to protect yourself from pain? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow, he would meet this passionate advocate face to face. He would explain, calmly and rationally, why her center needed to make way for progress. And if she refused to see reason, well, Alexander Westbrook always got what he wanted. Always. Sentiment has no place in business, he murmured to the empty room. And I am nothing if not a businessman. Jamie, look at me. You're safe here. Olivia Martinez knelt beside the small boy who had wedged himself between the bookshelf and wall, his thin arms wrapped around knees pulled tight to his chest. At 7 years old, Jamie had witnessed violence no child should ever see. 3 weeks at Heartspace, and he still hadn't spoken a word. Liv, as everyone called her, didn't push. Instead, she placed a sheet of paper and colorful markers on the floor between them. Remember what we talked about yesterday? Colors can speak when words feel too big. Her voice remained gentle, steady. Maybe blue for sad, red for angry, yellow for scared. Jamie's eyes, dark pools of unspoken trauma, flickered briefly to the markers before returning to study his shoes. I'll start. Liv selected a purple marker, drawing swirling patterns across her own paper. Purple is how I feel when I am thinking hard about something important, like I am right now. Minutes passed in silence. Then, almost imperceptibly, Jamie's hand reached out, hovering over the markers before selecting black. With quick, jagged strokes, he covered his paper in darkness. Liv nodded. That's a lot of black, Jamie. Is that how everything feels right now? The boy's shoulders tensed, but he continued drawing, pressing so hard the marker tip threatened to tear through the paper. Then, unexpectedly, he reached for the yellow marker, creating a tiny dot of light amid the darkness. There's a little yellow, Liv observed softly. Something that feels different from all the black? Jamie's hand froze. His eyes, when they finally met hers, held the faintest glimmer of something beyond fear. He pointed to the center around them, then to Liv herself. The breakthrough was small, no words yet, but in that moment Liv felt the familiar rush that had sustained her through 5 years of financial struggles and 60-hour weeks. This was why Heartspace existed. This was everything. Miss Martinez? Elena, the center's receptionist and only full-time employee besides Liv, appeared in the doorway. Your sister's online one says it's urgent. Liv nodded, giving Jamie's shoulder a gentle squeeze before rising. Keep drawing if you want to, Jamie. I'll be right back. In her cramped office, more storage closet than executive suite, Liv picked up the phone. Maya? What's up? Turn on channel 8 right now, her sister demanded without preamble. Liv fumbled with the ancient television perched precariously on a filing cabinet. The screen flickered to life, showing a reporter standing outside a familiar building. Her building. Westbrook Technologies has confirmed plans to acquire the entire Riverside district for their new innovation park. Local businesses and residents have 6 months to relocate, though some, like the Heartspace Art Therapy Center behind me, are vowing to fight the development. The room tilted slightly. Liv gripped the edge of her desk, blood rushing in her ears. They can't do this, she whispered. The children, they need stability, consistency. We can't just... Breathe, Liv, Maya interrupted. This isn't over. They don't own the building yet, right? No, we lease from Mr. Grayson. But if he sells, then you fight. That's what you do. After hanging up, Liv sank into her chair, mind racing. Heartspace served over 60 children weekly, most from families who couldn't afford private therapy. They operated on grants, donations, and Liv's stubborn refusal to give up even when her bank account dipped dangerously low at month's end. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Elena stood in the doorway, concern etched across her face. "I saw the news," she said. "What do we do?" Liv straightened, determination replacing shock. "We organize. Call everyone, parents, volunteers, supporters. Tell them there's an emergency meeting here tonight." By 7 o'clock, Heartspace overflowed with people. Parents whose children had found their voices again through art, teachers who referred their most troubled students, community members who believed in second chances. Liv stood before them, her usual calm replaced by passionate urgency. "They think we'll go quietly because we're small, because we don't have fancy lawyers or political connections." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "But they're wrong. Heartspace isn't just a building. It's a lifeline for children who've already lost too much." She outlined their strategy: petitions, media outreach, attendance at tomorrow's town hall meeting where Westbrook representatives would present their plans. "They'll send some corporate spokesperson who'll talk about progress and economic growth," Liv continued. "They'll offer numbers and projections while ignoring the human cost." A father raised his hand. "I heard Alexander Westbrook himself might attend. They say he never backs down once he wants something." Liv had researched the billionaire after seeing the news. His meteoric rise, his ruthless business tactics, his cold efficiency that had earned him the nickname the Frost King. The thought of facing him sent a flutter of anxiety through her chest, but she pushed it aside. "Then Alexander Westbrook will learn that neither do we." Her voice didn't waver. "Tomorrow we show him that some things matter more than money, that Heartspace isn't for sale at any price." As the meeting dispersed, Liv returned to her office, spreading photographs across her desk. Children painting, sculpting, finding healing through creation. Jamie's black paper with its single point of yellow light sat on top. Tomorrow she would face a man who had built an empire by destroying obstacles in his path. A man who, by all accounts, had no patience for emotional appeals or lost causes. Liv touched Jamie's artwork gently. "Let him try." The Riverside Community Center buzzed with tension as residents packed the aging auditorium. Handmade signs reading "Save Our Neighborhood" and "Hearts Before Profit" dotted the crowd. Liv arrived early with a contingent of Heartspace supporters, strategically claiming seats near the front. "He's here," Elena whispered, nudging Liv's arm. Alexander Westbrook entered with the confidence of someone who owned not just the room but the entire city. 3 executives flanked him like an honor guard as he strode down the center aisle. The crowd's murmurs intensified, but Alex seemed oblivious to the hostility directed his way. Liv studied him, surprised by how young he appeared despite his formidable reputation. In person, the billionaire was taller than she'd expected, his tailored charcoal suit emphasizing broad shoulders and an athletic build that business magazines didn't capture. His features were striking: sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed almost artificial. When those eyes briefly swept across the room and landed on her, Liv felt an unexpected jolt of something. She frowned, irritated by her body's betrayal. Mayor Wilson opened the meeting with practiced political neutrality. "We're here to discuss Westbrook Technologies' proposed innovation park and address community concerns." Alex's presentation was flawlessly executed, projected images of gleaming buildings, promises of jobs and economic revitalization, environmental considerations that exceeded requirements. His voice, deep and controlled, commanded attention without seeming to try. "The Riverside Innovation Park will create over 3,000 jobs and generate $50 million, 0 cents in annual tax revenue," he concluded. "We understand change can be difficult, but progress requires vision. Westbrook Technologies is prepared to offer relocation assistance to all affected businesses and residents." The mayor nodded appreciatively. "Thank you, Mr. Westbrook. Now we'll take questions and comments from community members." Several business owners spoke first, some resigned, others angry. Alex responded with practiced patience, though Liv noticed how his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly with each emotional appeal. When her turn came, Liv approached the microphone, acutely aware of Alex's gaze following her. "My name is Olivia Martinez. I run Heart Space Art Therapy Center." Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. "Mr. Westbrook, your presentation mentioned job creation and tax revenue, but I didn't hear anything about the human cost of your progress." She gestured to the parents and children who had come with her. HeartSpace serves children who've experienced trauma, abuse, violence, loss. Children who are finally healing in a safe environment you plan to demolish. Where exactly in your economic projections do their needs factor in? Alex leaned forward slightly. "Mrs. Martinez, while your work is admirable, the Innovation Park will generate resources that benefit the entire city, including funding for social services." "These aren't abstract social services," Liv interrupted, something she never did. "These are real children with names and faces and nightmares that keep them awake." Jamie only made eye contact for the first time yesterday after 3 weeks of therapy. Zoe spoke her first words in months last Tuesday. What happens to them during your transition period? How many steps backward will they take when the one safe place they know disappears? The room fell silent. Alex's expression remained impassive, but something flickered behind his eyes. Annoyance? Interest? Emotional appeals make for compelling theater, Ms. Martinez, but they don't change economic realities. His voice cooled several degrees. HeartSpace leases its building. The property owner has already expressed interest in selling. That's the market at work. Liv felt heat rising in her cheeks. "Is that all children are to you, market externalities?" A muscle twitched in Alex's jaw. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Liv held his gaze. "Behind your talk of progress and innovation, there's a simple truth. You're willing to sacrifice vulnerable children for profit margins." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. For a fraction of a second, Alex seemed caught off guard by her directness, something his executives clearly weren't accustomed to seeing. The momentary crack in his composure vanished almost instantly. "Miss Martinez?" he replied, his voice dangerously soft. "Westbrook Technologies employs 15,000 people globally. We've funded hospitals, scholarships, and yes, programs for disadvantaged children. Your center serves, 60 kids? The Innovation Park will generate resources to help thousands." "So those 60 don't matter?" Liv challenged. Their eyes locked across the room. The tension between them crackled with something beyond the obvious conflict, something neither wanted to acknowledge. "Everyone matters, Miss Martinez," Alex finally said, "but difficult decisions require looking beyond individual cases to the greater good." "The greater good," Liv repeated. How convenient that the greater good always seems to align with what benefits Westbrook Technologies. A ripple of surprised laughter spread through the audience. Alex's executives shifted uncomfortably, but to everyone's surprise, the corner of Alex's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion another time, Ms. Martinez," he said, his tone shifting subtly. "I'd be interested in seeing your center firsthand before making final determinations." The unexpected offer silenced Liv momentarily. Was this a tactic? A way to appear reasonable while proceeding with his plans regardless? "Our doors are always open, Mr. Westbrook," she finally replied, chin raised. "Though I doubt seeing children heal through art will change your mind if profit is your only concern." "You presume to know a great deal about my concerns, Ms. Martinez." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'll see for myself what's at stake." As Liv returned to her seat, her hands trembled slightly. She'd stood up to donors, skeptical officials, even angry parents, but something about Alexander Westbrook unsettled her in ways she hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just his power or wealth. It was the unexpected intensity she'd glimpsed beneath his controlled exterior, the way his eyes had studied her with something beyond mere opposition. The meeting continued, but Liv barely heard the subsequent speakers. Tomorrow, the Frost King would enter her domain, the warm, colorful space she'd built from nothing. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt an unwelcome flutter of anticipation that had nothing to do with saving heart space and everything to do with the man who threatened its existence. After the meeting, Alex declined his team's offer to join them for dinner, claiming work to finish. But as his driver navigated back toward Westbrook Tower, he found himself replaying his exchange with Olivia Martinez. Her passion, her unflinching challenge, her complete disregard for his status, all of it was refreshing. "Change of plans," he told his driver. "Take me past the Riverside district. I want to see this arts center before tomorrow." Alex arrived at Heartspace 40 minutes early, a tactical decision to observe the center without the performance he suspected Olivia Martinez would orchestrate. His driver looked surprised when instructed to return in 2 hours rather than wait. "I prefer to walk back," Alex said, dismissing the man with a wave. The building was more vibrant than he'd expected, a converted Victorian with a mural of intertwined hands spanning one exterior wall. No security guard questioned him as he entered, just a small bell announcing his arrival. The reception area stood empty, allowing Alex to move unnoticed through the space. Voices drew him down a hallway lined with children's artwork, explosions of color and form that seemed chaotic at first glance. He paused at a partially open door, where Olivia Martinez sat cross-legged on the floor beside a small girl with tight braids and downcast eyes. "Sometimes the monsters feel so real, don't they, Zoe?" Liv's voice was gentle but not condescending. "That's why we're making this monster trap." The child Zoe nodded almost imperceptibly, her small hands working a lump of clay. "The special thing about this trap," Liv continued, "is that it catches the scary thoughts before they can hurt you. Each time you press your finger, you're making it stronger." Alex found himself transfixed. Gone was the fiery advocate from yesterday's meeting. This Olivia moved with patient certainty, her entire focus on the child before her. "Ms. Martinez." Both Liv and Zoe startled at his voice. The girl immediately shrank back, eyes widening in alarm at the tall stranger in the doorway. "Mr. Westbrook," Liv recovered quickly, placing a reassuring hand on Zoe's shoulder. "You're early? I prefer to see reality, not staged presentations." Liv's eyes narrowed slightly, but her voice remained calm. "Zoe, this is Mr. Westbrook. He's visiting to learn about our center." She turned to Alex. "We're finishing an important project. Would you mind waiting in my office, second door on the left?" It wasn't a request. Alex found himself complying, oddly intrigued by her dismissal. Her office revealed more than any prepared tour could. Grant applications stacked beside unpaid bills, a desk that had seen better decades, and a wall covered with photographs of children holding artwork, their faces transformed by unmistakable pride. One image caught his attention, a younger Olivia with her arm around a teenage boy holding a painting of a phoenix rising from ashes. The resemblance between them was subtle but present. "My brother Miguel," Liv said from the doorway, "my first art therapy client, though I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time." Alex turned. "Family business?" "In a way." She entered, leaving the door open. "Miguel stopped speaking after our father died. For 8 months, nothing. Then I gave him paints." A shadow crossed her face. Art gave him his voice back when words failed him. And now he's a graphic designer in Chicago, married with a daughter. Pride softened her features momentarily before her professional mask returned. "You're here to evaluate Heartspace's worth against your profit margins, Mr. Westbrook. Let's not pretend this is a social call." Alex studied her. The determined set of her jaw, the slight shadows beneath eyes that suggested too many late nights, the simple silver pendant that caught the light when she moved. "You're right," he conceded. "This is business. But business requires understanding assets and liabilities complete. These children aren't entries on a spreadsheet." "No," Alex agreed, surprising her. "They're not. Show me what you do here, Miss Martinez." The unvarnished truth. For the next hour, Liv guided him through Heartspace, not with the polished pitch he'd anticipated, but with unfiltered reality. He observed a group session where teenagers created comic strips expressing emotions they couldn't verbalize. He watched a boy with burn scars sculpt a dragon that breathes life instead of fire. Throughout, Liv moved with natural authority, her connection with each child evident in small gestures. A touch on the shoulder, a private joke, the way she remembered every detail of their previous work. "You're understaffed," Alex noted as they walked. "3 part-time therapists besides myself. We could help twice as many children with proper funding. Yet you turned down the Keller Foundation grant last year." Liv stopped walking. "You've done your research?" "Always." Alex's expression remained neutral. "The question is why refuse $50,000, 0 cents? Because it came with requirements to prioritize certain demographics for statistical purposes." Her eyes flashed. "I won't rank children's trauma to satisfy some donor's metrics." Something shifted in Alex's assessment. This wasn't the naive idealist he'd expected. Her principles had teeth, and costs she willingly bore. They ended in a small garden behind the building where several children were painting outdoors. Zoe, the girl from earlier, had emerged from her shell enough to join them, carefully creating a blue circle surrounded by protective spikes. "Your lease expires in 4 months, Alex said abruptly. "Even without my project, this building's value has tripled since you signed it." Liv's shoulders tensed. "I'm aware. You can't afford market rate. We'll find a way." Her certainty would have been admirable if it weren't so impractical. Alex made a decision that surprised even himself. "I have a proposition, Ms. Martinez. I'm not interested in being bought out. I'm not offering to buy you out." He turned to face her fully. "Westbrook Foundation needs to launch its children's initiative before the fiscal year ends. We have the funding but lack the expertise to create something meaningful rather than merely photogenic." Liv's expression shifted from defensive to confused. "What are you suggesting?" "A 3-month delay on the Riverside development decision. During that time you consult for Westbrook Foundation, helping design an art therapy program we can implement citywide. And after 3 months? If your program demonstrates measurable impact, we'll discuss permanent alternatives for HeartSpace, including possible integration into our community benefits package." Liv studied him with open suspicion. "Why would you offer this?" Alex considered his answer carefully. The truth, that something about her passion had penetrated his carefully constructed indifference, wasn't something he was prepared to acknowledge. "Westbrook Technologies values innovation. Your methods are innovative." He maintained his businesslike tone. "Consider it a trial period for both of us. And if I refuse? Then the development proceeds as planned and you have 4 months to relocate." His voice softened fractionally. "This offers a potential path forward, Ms. Martinez. I suggest you take it." Liv looked past him to where Zoe was adding yellow rays around her blue circle. A sun breaking through, protected but still shining. 3 months, she finally said, with written assurance that HeartSpace continues operating during that period. "Done." Alex extended his hand. "Do we have an agreement?" When her hand met his, the contact sent an unexpected current through him, warm, electric, unsettling. From her quickly withdrawn grip and slightly widened eyes, she'd felt it too. "We have an agreement, Mr. Westbrook." Her voice betrayed nothing, though I suspect we both may regret it. As Alex walked back to Westbrook Tower, declining his driver's offer to pick him up, he found himself replaying moments from the morning, the gentle authority in Liv's voice, the transformation in children's expressions as they created, the unexpected complexity of the woman herself. For the first time in years, something had slipped past his carefully constructed defenses. The realization was as unwelcome as it was undeniable. Would you make a deal with someone you consider your enemy? Let us know in the comments below. The Westbrook Foundation's conference room felt like foreign territory to Liv. Everything gleamed with wealth, from the hand-carved mahogany table to the original artwork adorning the walls. She'd dressed carefully for this first official meeting, choosing her most professional outfit, though it still paled against the designer's suits surrounding her. Alex sat at the head of the table, reviewing her proposal with unnerving focus. 5 Foundation executives waited with barely concealed impatience. The silence stretched uncomfortably. "This budget is unrealistic," he finally said, looking up. "You've allocated 60% to direct services and only 10% to marketing and metrics." "Because direct services are what help children," Liv countered, "not promotional materials." One executive, Diane something, exchanged glances with her colleagues. "Ms. Martinez, foundation initiatives require visibility to attract ongoing support. Children healing isn't visible enough?" The words escaped before Liv could temper them. Alex's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? "Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Ms. Martinez." He dismissed the executives with a slight nod. "We'll reconvene tomorrow." When the door closed behind them, Liv expected a reprimand. Instead, Alex leaned back in his chair, studying her with unexpected intensity. "You don't play politics, do you?" "I don't have time for games when children's well-being is at stake." "Admirable, but ineffective." He pushed her proposal back across the table. "Rewrite this. 30% to direct services, 30% to training additional therapists, 20% to facilities, 20% to documentation and promotion." Liv blinked. "That's actually better than my proposal." "I know." The corner of his mouth twitched. "Contrary to your assumptions, Ms. Martinez, I understand sustainable program development. Where the show for your executives then?" "Because they expected it." Something shifted in his expression, a momentary glimpse behind the mask. Sometimes meeting expectations is easier than challenging them. The admission, small as it was, caught Liv off guard. For a brief moment, Alexander Westbrook seemed almost human. Their second meeting took place at Heartspace a week later. Alex arrived without entourage, dressed in what appeared to be his version of casual, a light sweater over tailored pants that probably cost more than Liv's monthly rent. "You're staring, Miss Martinez." Heat rushed to her cheeks. "I've never seen you without a tie. It's disconcerting. Like seeing a shark without teeth." His tone was dry, but not unkind. "Something like that." They worked in her cramped office, knees occasionally brushing under the small desk as they reviewed curriculum materials. Each accidental contact sent an unwelcome jolt through Liv's body. Twice she caught Alex watching her when he thought she was focused on her notes. "Well, art therapy?" he asked unexpectedly. "Your background is in education. You could be earning twice as much in a private school." Liv considered deflecting but found herself answering honestly. "After what art did for Miguel, I went back for my master's. During my internship, I worked with a 5-year-old who'd witnessed his father's murder. He couldn't speak about it, but he could paint it. Once it was outside of him, on paper, he could begin to heal." She paused, surprised by the intensity of Alex's attention. Money was never the point. Healing was. "Most people claim that until money becomes available," Alex observed. "Is that what happened to you?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. His expression closed immediately. "We should focus on the program parameters." But something had shifted between them, a door cracked open that neither had intended. By their 5th meeting, an unexpected rhythm had developed. They argued principles, compromised on details, and occasionally, surprisingly, found themselves on the same side against foundation bureaucracy. "This evaluation matrix is ridiculous," Alex muttered during a particularly tedious conference call, muting the phone to speak only to Liv. "No child's progress fits into these categories." Liv nearly dropped her coffee. "Did you just agree with me about something?" "Don't look so shocked, Ms. Martinez. Even sharks occasionally swim in the right direction." She couldn't help laughing, and for a moment, Alex's carefully controlled expression softened into something dangerously close to a genuine smile. The transformation was startling, lines easing around his eyes, warmth replacing coldness. Liv found herself wondering how often he actually smiled in his carefully constructed life. 3 weeks into their collaboration, Liv arrived at Westbrook Tower for a scheduled meeting to find Alex's office empty, except for his assistant. "Mr. Westbrook had an urgent matter arise," Vanessa explained with practiced smoothness. "He asked if you could reschedule." Liv was turning to leave when raised voices from the adjacent conference room caught her attention. "You're making a mistake, Alex," a woman's voice, cultured and cold. "The board won't approve this diversion of resources. The board serves at my discretion, not the other way around." Alex's voice carried that dangerous softness Liv had come to recognize as his most serious tone. "Because of a children's art project? This isn't like you, unless—" A knowing pause. "Is it the woman running it, Olivia Martinez? Are you sleeping with her?" Liv froze, heat rushing to her face. "That's enough, Rebecca." Alex's voice had dropped to Arctic temperatures. "My personal life is not open for discussion, and Ms. Martinez deserves your professional respect." "You didn't answer the question." "I shouldn't have to. Get out." Footsteps approached the door. Liv quickly moved away, but not quickly enough. The door swung open and a striking blonde in a designer's suit nearly collided with her. The woman's eyes narrowed in instant recognition. "Miss Martinez, how convenient." Her smile never reached her eyes. Eavesdropping is generally considered poor form. Before Liv could respond, Alex appeared in the doorway. Something flashed across his face when he saw Liv. Surprise, then something unreadable. "Rebecca was just leaving," he said pointedly. The woman's smile tightened as she walked away, heels clicking aggressively against marble. "I'm sorry you had to witness that," Alex said once they were alone. "Is that what people think, that we're—" Liv couldn't finish the sentence. "People speculate when they don't understand." He gestured toward his office. "Shall we continue our meeting?" The tension between them had shifted into something electric, dangerous. As they worked, Liv found herself acutely aware of his proximity, the faint scent of his cologne, the controlled strength in his hands as he sorted through documents, the way his voice deepened slightly when they were alone. Hours later, as sunset painted the city in gold through the floor-to-ceiling windows, they stood side by side reviewing the final program outline. "I think we've done it," Liv said, genuine excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. "This could help hundreds of children." "Because of your expertise," Alex acknowledged, turning toward her. "You've created something remarkable here, Olivia." It was the first time he'd used her first name. The sound of it in his deep voice sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the office temperature. "We created it," she corrected softly, looking up at him. Their eyes locked. The carefully maintained distance between them suddenly seemed to evaporate. Alex's gaze dropped to her lips, and Liv found herself swaying slightly toward him, drawn by something beyond her control. His hand rose, hesitating just shy of touching her face. For a heartbeat, the mask fell completely, revealing raw hunger, need, and beneath it all, unmistakable fear. Then, as quickly as it had fallen, the mask returned. Alex stepped back abruptly, putting professional distance between them. "It's getting late," he said, voice carefully controlled. "We should continue tomorrow." The rejection stung more than it should have. Liv gathered her papers with hands that weren't quite steady. "Of course, Mr. Westbrook, tomorrow." As she walked to the elevator, Liv tried to convince herself that the almost moment had been her imagination. But the memory of his expression, that brief, unguarded look of longing mixed with something that looked almost like panic, told her otherwise. Whatever was happening between them, Alexander Westbrook was fighting it every bit as hard as she was, and losing just as she was. Alexander Westbrook didn't lose control, ever. Control had built his empire, protected him from pain, defined his existence for 6 years. Yet here he was at 3 a.m., standing at his penthouse window, sleep impossible as his mind replayed the moment he'd nearly kissed Olivia Martinez. He pressed his forehead against the cool glass. What the hell was happening to him? "You made a vow," he reminded himself aloud. The empty penthouse absorbed his words without response. After Elise's betrayal, he'd reconstructed himself methodically, excising vulnerability like a surgeon removing cancer. Business decisions became cleaner, profits soared, and the hollow space in his chest became a familiar companion rather than a wound. He'd convinced himself it was strength, until Olivia Martinez looked at him with those warm brown eyes that saw too much. Alex poured himself 2 fingers of scotch, remembering the subtle floral scent of her hair when they'd stood close, reviewing documents. The way her brow furrowed when she concentrated. Her unexpected laugh that seemed to bypass all his defenses. "This is temporary," he told his reflection in the window glass. "The project ends in 7 weeks. The attraction is circumstantial." But even as he formed the words, he recognized the lie. What he felt for Liv wasn't just physical attraction, it was something far more dangerous. Admiration, respect, a growing need to see her smile, to be the cause of that smile. Alex drained his glass, the expensive scotch wasted on his distracted palate. Tomorrow he would reinstate proper boundaries. Professional distance. No more late evening meetings, no more moments of unguarded conversation. No more pretending he wasn't breaking his most sacred vow with every thought of her. "You're falling for him," Maya stated flatly, passing Liv a glass of wine across her kitchen counter. "That's ridiculous." Liv took a too large sip. "He represents everything I oppose: corporate greed, prioritizing profits over people." Aha! Maya's skepticism was palpable. "That's why you've mentioned him 12 times in 20 minutes. I'm working with him daily on a major project. Of course he comes up in conversation. You said he has surprisingly kind eyes when he actually smiles." Maya raised an eyebrow. "That's not project talk, sis." Liv groaned, dropping her head into her hands. "It's insane, right? He's literally threatening to demolish Heartspace." "Is he, though? From what you've told me, he's created a path to save it. A temporary path. Maybe." Maya studied her sister. "Or maybe the infamous Frost King is melting a little." Liv thought about the almost kiss, the look in Alex's eyes before he'd pulled away. "Even if there is something, it can't go anywhere. We're too different." "Are you?" Maya challenged. "You're both stubborn, passionate about your work, willing to fight for what you believe in, and from what you've said, he actually listens to you. When he's not being infuriatingly arrogant. The Liv I know doesn't get this worked up over someone unless they matter." Maya refilled their glasses. "Just be careful. Billionaires are complicated." "Nothing's going to happen," Liv insisted, trying to convince herself as much as her sister. "In 7 weeks the project ends, and we go back to being adversaries." But even as she said it, Liv wondered if anything could ever be that simple again. The crisis came without warning on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Liv was in session with a group of teenagers when Elena burst in, face pale. "The roof is leaking," battered right over the supply room. Liv raced upstairs to find water pouring through the ceiling, soaking irreplaceable art materials and damaging the building's electrical system. Within an hour the center was without power, water pooling on floors, and a structural engineer delivering devastating news. "The whole section needs immediate repair," he explained grimly. "You can't operate with this damage." "How long?" Liv asked, trying to keep her voice steady as she calculated costs they couldn't afford. 2 weeks minimum, and you're looking at about $30,000 0 cents for proper repairs." Liv stepped outside to make calls, to insurance, minimal coverage, to emergency funds already depleted, to contractors, none available immediately. Rain soaked through her thin sweater as she paced the sidewalk, desperation mounting with each dead end. She was so focused on her calls that she didn't notice the black Bentley pulling up until Alex stood before her, concern etched across his usually impassive features. "Vanessa said you canceled our meeting. What happened?" Words failed as the full weight of the situation crashed down. Heartspace could be closed for weeks. Children who depended on the stability would be displaced. Costs they couldn't cover would mount. "The roof collapsed," she finally managed, voice cracking. I don't know how to." Without warning, Alex removed his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders, sheltering her from the rain. The gesture, so unexpected and gentle, broke something inside her. To her horror, tears welled in her eyes. "Show me," he said simply. Inside, Alex assessed the damage with methodical efficiency, asking precise questions of the engineer, while Liv worked to salvage what materials she could. When he stepped away to make calls, she expected him to leave. This wasn't his problem, after all. Instead, he returned with unexpected solutions. "A contractor will be here within the hour to tarp the roof and begin emergency repairs," he stated. "I've arranged temporary space for Heart Space at the Westbrook Community Center downtown, fully equipped, available immediately. Transportation for your materials and clients will be provided tomorrow morning." Liv stared at him, stunned. "How did you—" "Money has its uses." Something softened in his expression. "Your children shouldn't miss sessions because of infrastructure failure." "I can't afford." "This isn't charity, Olivier." His use of her first name sent warmth through her despite her soaked clothes. "Consider it an investment in our foundation project. We need Heart Space operational to complete our work." But they both knew it was more than that. Throughout the afternoon, Alex worked alongside her, his expensive shoes ruined by water, his crisp white shirt sleeves rolled up as he helped move art supplies to safety. He made decisions without hesitation, deployed resources with quiet authority, and never once suggested the crisis proved Heart Space's instability. As evening fell and emergency repairs began, they found themselves alone in her office, salvaging files. "Why are you doing this?" Liv finally asked the question that had burned in her mind all day. Alex paused, a rare uncertainty crossing his features. "Because it matters to you?" 4 simple words that shifted everything between them. "Alex?" She stepped closer, his name feeling both foreign and right on her lips. His eyes darkened. For a moment she thought he might close the distance between them. Instead, he reached into his pocket and withdrew an envelope. "The Westbrook Foundation Gala is Saturday night," he said, voice rougher than usual. "The Children's Art Therapy Initiative will be announced. As its architect, you should be there." Liv took the envelope, their fingers brushing. "Is that the only reason you want me there?" The question hung between them, demanding truth neither had been willing to acknowledge. "No," he admitted quietly, "it's not." The simple honesty in those 2 words made her heart race. This wasn't the calculated businessman or the infamous Frost King. This was just Alex, looking at her with undisguised longing that matched her own. "I'll be there," she promised. As he left, Liv watched him speak briefly with the contractors, ensuring work would continue through the night. The man directing emergency repairs bore little resemblance to the cold-eyed billionaire who'd entered the community meeting weeks ago. The ice was cracking, revealing something unexpected beneath. Something that frightened and thrilled her in equal measure. Saturday night suddenly felt like a threshold she wasn't sure either of them was ready to cross. "You can't wear that," Maya declared, eyeing the simple black dress Liv had laid out for the gala. "What's wrong with it? It's professional and—" Boring. Maya disappeared into Liv's closet, emerging with a garment bag. "This is why I brought options." The dress Maya unveiled made Liv's breath catch, a deep emerald silk that seemed to shimmer with hidden depths, elegant yet undeniably striking. "That's too much," Liv protested weakly, even as her fingers reached to touch the luxurious fabric. "It's exactly enough." Maya's expression softened. "You spend your life helping others shine, Liv. Tonight, let yourself be seen." Hours later, standing before the mirror, Liv barely recognized herself. The dress fit as though created for her, accentuating curves usually hidden beneath practical clothing. Maya had styled her normally practical ponytail into soft waves that framed her face. The overall effect was transformative. Still Liv, but a version that had stepped out of the shadows into light. "He won't know what hit him," Maya murmured, adjusting a final curl. Liv's stomach fluttered with nerves. "This isn't about Alex." Maya's knowing smile said everything. The Westbrook Foundation Gala transformed the city's historic art museum into a glittering showcase of wealth and influence. Liv's rideshare dropped her at the entrance, where photographers captured arriving guests against a backdrop bearing the Westbrook logo. She hesitated, suddenly feeling out of place despite her careful preparation. These were Alex's people, the elite world where he moved effortlessly. What was she doing here? "Monsieur de Martinez?" A staff member approached with a tablet. "Mr. Westbrook asked to be notified when you arrived. If you'll follow me." She was led through the grand hall where hundreds of elegantly dressed guests mingled beneath crystal chandeliers. Conversations paused briefly as she passed, curious glances following her progress. Liv kept her chin up, fighting the urge to shrink under their scrutiny. Alex stood with a group of executives near the main stage, his back to her as she approached. Even from behind, he commanded attention, his broad shoulders perfectly outlined by a tuxedo that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Mr. Westbrook," her guide announced. "Mr. Martinez has arrived." Alex turned, and the world seemed to slow around them. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly as they traveled from her face to the emerald dress and back again. Something raw and unguarded flashed across his features before he could master it, a look of such naked appreciation that heat bloomed across Liv's skin. "Olivia?" Her name emerged lower than his usual tone. "You look—" For once, the eloquent businessman seemed at a loss for words. "Different?" she supplied, suddenly self-conscious. "Breathtaking," he corrected, offering his arm. "Come, there are people you should meet." His hand covered hers as it rested on his arm, warm and steadying. The simple contact sent electricity through her veins. Throughout the next hour, Alex introduced her to foundation directors, potential donors, and influential supporters. What surprised Liv most was how he presented her, not as an employee or consultant, but as a partner whose expertise he clearly respected. Each time he spoke about their work together, pride colored his voice. "Ms. Martinez's innovative approach has completely transformed our understanding of therapeutic interventions," he told the mayor, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back. The casual possessiveness of that touch wasn't lost on those watching. Whispers followed them across the ballroom, curious eyes tracking their every interaction. "People are talking about us," Liv murmured as they moved between groups. "Let them." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. It makes a change from the usual financial gossip. His ease with the situation both surprised and unsettled her. This wasn't the cautious man who'd pulled away from their almost kiss. Tonight, Alexander Westbrook seemed to have made a decision, one that involved keeping her firmly by his side. As Alex was momentarily pulled away by his CFO, Liv found herself alone near the bar. Two women in designer gowns stood nearby, voices carrying clearly despite their attempt at discretion. "That's her, the charity case he's suddenly obsessed with," the blonde said, eyeing Liv over her champagne glass. "Rebecca says he's completely distracted, missing meetings, changing project parameters." "She's pretty enough, I suppose," her companion replied. "But please, we all know Alexander's pattern. He'll get bored once the novelty wears off. Remember that environmental activist last year? Lasted all of 3 weeks. At least that one knew her place. This one actually thinks she's changing him." The blonde laughed, as if the Frost King has a heart to melt. Anger flared in Liv's chest. Before she could stop herself, she turned toward them. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. "I couldn't help overhearing your assessment of Alexander Westbrook." The women froze, caught in their gossip. "You've mistaken calculation for coldness," Liv continued. "Mr. Westbrook sees value where others see only profit margins. He works harder than anyone in his company, and, unlike some people at this gala, he actually cares about making a meaningful difference, not just appearing to." Their shocked expressions might have been comical under different circumstances. "You don't know him," the blonde recovered enough to say. "Perhaps better than those who've known him longer but never bothered to see beyond the surface." Liv smiled politely. "Enjoy your evening, ladies." She walked away, heart pounding, only to find Alex standing a few feet away. From his expression, he'd heard everything. Without a word, he extended his hand. When she took it, he led her through French doors onto a terrace garden illuminated by strings of soft lights. The night air carried the scent of jasmine, a welcome respite from the perfumed ballroom. "You defended me," he said finally, his voice unusually quiet. "They were wrong about you." "Were they?" Alex turned to face her fully, moonlight casting shadows across his features. "I've cultivated that reputation deliberately, Olivia. The Frost King, the man without sentiment." "Why?" "Because it's easier." Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. "People expect less when they believe you're incapable of feeling." "Is that what you believe, that you're incapable?" I used to know exactly who I was." His gaze held hers with unexpected intensity. "Until you challenged everything." The admission hung between them, honest in a way their previous interactions hadn't been. "What happened to you, Alex?" she asked softly. "What made you build those walls?" For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Her name was Elise. We were engaged. I discovered she'd been feeding information to my competitors while planning to leave me once she'd secured enough shares in my company." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was a valuable lesson." His smile held no warmth. "I learned that vulnerability is a luxury I can't afford." "But that's not living, Alex. That's just existing." It was enough. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Until you walked into that community meeting and looked at me like I was something more than my bank account." Liv's breath caught. "You are more." "Am I?" His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Because for 6 years, I've kept a vow to never let anyone close enough to matter, to never risk that kind of betrayal again." "And now?" The question emerged barely audible. "Now, I find myself breaking that vow every time I'm near you." His hand rose to her face, fingers tracing her cheekbone with exquisite gentleness. "And the terrifying part is, I can't seem to stop." The confession stripped away the last pretense between them. Liv saw the battle in his eyes, desire warring with deep-rooted fear, need fighting against self-preservation. "I'm not Elise," she whispered. "No." His thumb brushed her lower lip. "You're far more dangerous." When his mouth finally claimed hers, it wasn't the tentative first kiss she'd imagined. It was devastating in its intensity. Years of denied emotion channeled into a single consuming moment. His arms encircled her, drawing her against the solid warmth of his body, as though he feared she might disappear. Liv responded with equal fervor, fingers threading through his hair, erasing the careful distance they'd maintained for weeks. The kiss deepened, his groan vibrating against her lips as restraint shattered completely. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Alex rested his forehead against hers. His usual composure had vanished, replaced by raw vulnerability that transformed his features. "I've wanted to do that since the moment you challenged me at that community meeting," he confessed, voice rough with emotion. "That long?" She smiled against his lips. "Longer than I've been willing to admit, even to myself." They remained in the garden, talking as they never had before, about childhoods, dreams, fears. The masks set aside. When Alex laughed, truly laughed at something she said, the transformation was so complete that Liv couldn't imagine how anyone had ever called him cold. Hours later, as he escorted her to the waiting car, his kiss goodbye held promise rather than hesitation. "Tomorrow?" he asked simply. "Tomorrow," she agreed. Alone in her apartment, Liv touched her lips, still feeling the imprint of his kiss. Something fundamental had shifted between them tonight. Walls crumbling, truths acknowledged, possibilities opening where none had existed before. For better or worse, there would be no going back to who they had been before this night. The Frost King's careful defenses had shattered, revealing the man beneath. A man who looked at her as though she were something precious and terrifying in equal measure. And despite every rational argument against it, Liv knew she was falling irrevocably in love with that man. The week following the gala transformed Liv's world. Stolen moments with Alex between meetings became precious treasures, his hand finding hers beneath conference tables, private smiles exchanged across rooms, late-night conversations that stretched until dawn. For the first time in years, Liv felt the exhilarating freefall of opening herself completely to another person. Alex, too, seemed transformed. The rigid control that had defined him loosened, revealing glimpses of the man he might have been before life taught him to guard himself so fiercely. He laughed more easily, his eyes softened when they found her across a room. Even his executives noticed the change, exchanging puzzled glances when he approved initiatives he would have dismissed weeks earlier. "You're good for him," Vanessa commented unexpectedly one afternoon as Liv waited in Alex's office. I've worked for Mr. Westbrook for 5 years. I've never seen him like this. The observation warmed Liv even as it terrified her. They were still navigating fragile territory. His wounds ran deep, and trust didn't come easily to either of them. But each day brought new revelations, new connections that made the risk seem worthwhile. Until Wednesday morning, when everything shattered. Liv was reviewing session notes when Elena burst into her office, face pale. "Have you seen it?" "Seen what?" Elena placed a tablet on the desk, open to the city's most notorious gossip site. The headline screamed in lurid type, "Frost King melts for charity case, inside Westbrook's secret romance." Below it, photos captured intimate moments Liv had believed private. Alex's hand at the small of her back at the gala. Their moonlit kiss in the garden, even an image of them leaving his penthouse early Monday morning. His arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders. But it was the article itself that turned her blood to ice. Sources close to Olivia Martinez reveal the struggling art therapist has been strategically cultivating Westbrook's interest to save her failing center. She knew exactly what she was doing, our insider confirms. The whole innocent act is just that, an act. She needed his money and figured out the fastest way to get it was through his bed. The phone rang before Liv could process the full horror. Maya's voice came through, tight with concern. "It's everywhere, Liv. Social media, news sites. They're calling you a gold digger. How did they get those photos?" Liv's voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Who would say those things?" "I don't know, but you need to talk to Alex before—" The call-waiting tone interrupted. Alex's name flashed on the screen. "He's calling now," Liv told her sister. "I'll call you back." She switched calls, heart pounding. "Alex, I just saw—" "My office." "Now." His voice was unrecognizable, cold, hard, the warmth of recent days completely erased. "Alex, I didn't—" The line went dead. Westbrook Tower felt different as Liv stepped from the elevator. Hostile territory rather than the increasingly familiar space it had become. Vanessa wouldn't meet her eyes as she gestured toward Alex's office. He stood at the window, back to the door, a rigid line of tension visible even from across the room. When the door closed behind Liv, he turned slowly. The man who faced her bore no resemblance to the one who had held her tenderly just hours earlier. This was the Frost King in full force. Eyes glacial, expression carved from stone. "Quite an effective strategy," he said, voice dangerously soft. "I should congratulate you." "Alex, I had nothing to do with this." Liv stepped forward, stopping when he visibly tensed. "Someone is lying about me." "Really?" He picked up a tablet from his desk, swiping to display the article. "Because these quotes sound remarkably specific. Details only someone close to you would know." "I would never say those things. I would never even think them." Desperation crept into her voice. "You know me, Alex." "Do I?" Something flickered behind his icy facade. Not warmth, but pain so acute it took her breath away. "I thought I did. I thought you were different." "I am different. This isn't me." Then explain how they knew about the Heart Space funding crisis, about our private conversations regarding the foundation grant, about the exact amount I transferred to cover your roof repairs. His voice rose slightly. "Explain how they knew things only you and I discussed in private." Liv's mind raced. Those details were damning, but she hadn't shared them with anyone except Maya, she whispered, realization dawning. "I told my sister some of this, but she would never—" "Stop." Alex raised a hand. "I've heard enough excuses." "They're not excuses. Someone is deliberately trying to hurt us." "Us?" His laugh held no humor. "There is no us, Miss Martinez. There was a business arrangement that became complicated. My mistake." The formal address cut deeper than his accusations. Liv fought back tears, refusing to break down before him. "Last week you told me you were tired of living behind walls," she said quietly. "You said I made you want to risk trusting again. And you proved exactly why I shouldn't have." Bitterness edged his words. "Congratulations on an excellent performance. You had me completely convinced." It wasn't a performance. Her voice cracked despite her efforts. What we shared was real. Was it? Alex moved closer, his height suddenly intimidating rather than comforting. Or was it just a convenient way to secure funding for your center, a calculated risk with an excellent return on investment? The accusation struck like a physical blow. How dare you reduce what happened between us to a transaction? Isn't that what it was? You needed something from me, you found a way to get it. I fell in love with you. The words escaped before she could stop them, hanging in the air between them. For a fraction of a second, Alex's mask slipped, shock and something like longing flashing across his features before ice reclaimed them. Love. He practically spat the word. A convenient shield for manipulation. Elise taught me that lesson. I was a fool to forget it. I'm not Elise. Tears spilled despite Liv's determination to remain composed. But you're so determined to see betrayal everywhere that you can't recognize truth when it's standing right in front of you. The truth. Alex's voice dropped to a whisper. The truth is that I broke my vow for you. I let you see parts of me no one has seen in years. I began to believe that maybe... He stopped abruptly, jaw clenching. And all along you were planning this. I wasn't planning anything. I never asked for any of this. Not the project, not the funding, not... Her voice faltered. Not falling for someone I thought could never care about someone like me. An Oscar-worthy performance. His expression hardened completely. But the show's over. The foundation will complete the children's initiative without your input. Your center's grant application is denied. As for the Riverside development, it proceeds as originally planned. The clinical dismantling of everything they'd built together, professionally and personally, left Liv breathless with pain. So that's it? You won't even consider that you might be wrong? I've been wrong enough already. Alex turned away, effectively dismissing her. Vanessa will see you out. Please don't contact me again. Liv stood frozen, the finality of his words sinking in. The man before her had retreated so completely behind his walls that no trace remained of the Alex who had held her, laughed with her, begun to trust her. You were right about one thing, she said finally, voice steady despite her tears. Vulnerability is a luxury you can't afford, not because someone might hurt you, but because you're determined to hurt yourself first. She walked out without looking back, dignity intact despite the curious stares of employees who had undoubtedly seen the tabloid story. In the elevator, alone at last, she allowed herself to break silent sobs, shaking her body as the numbers counted down to the lobby. Outside, rain fell in sheets, matching her tears as she walked blindly away from Westbrook Tower. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Maya, Elena, concerned friends who had seen the story. She ignored them all, unable to form words around the gaping wound in her chest. She had been wrongly accused before, by donors questioning her methods, by parents initially suspicious of art therapy, by colleagues who thought her too idealistic. But never had an accusation cut so deeply, because never had she given someone the power to devastate her so completely. Have you ever been wrongly accused by someone you care about? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Behind her, Westbrook Tower rose into the stormy sky, a monument to the man who had briefly let her see beyond his carefully constructed facade, only to shut her out more completely than ever before. 2 weeks passed in a fog of pain and professional determination. Liv threw herself into heart space, working punishing hours as if sheer exhaustion might dull the ache in her chest. The tabloid story faded from headlines, replaced by fresher scandals, but its damage lingered. Donors called with concerns. Parents questioned her judgment. The whispers followed her everywhere. The Westbrook Foundation's Children's Initiative launched without her involvement, her name scrubbed from press materials as though she'd never existed. The Riverside development proceeded on schedule, demolition permits filed and approved with ruthless efficiency. You need to fight this, Maya insisted during one of her increasingly frequent visits to check on her sister. Call him, make him listen. Made his choice. Liv's voice had lost its usual warmth. He chose to believe the worst of me without question. That tells me everything I need to know. But at night, alone with her thoughts, the memories haunted her. Alex's rare, genuine laugh. The way his eyes softened when he watched her work with children. The vulnerability in his voice when he'd finally shared his past. How could someone who had seen her so clearly suddenly become blind to the truth? Alexander Westbrook functioned on autopilot. Meetings, acquisitions, decisions, he moved through them with mechanical precision, his legendary focus sharper than ever. If executives noticed the increased chill in his demeanor, the complete absence of the brief warmth that had emerged during his collaboration with Olivia Martinez, none dared mention it. "The Riverside contracts are ready for final signature," Vanessa announced, placing the documents on his desk. "And Ms. Chen called again about the foundation gala next month." Alex nodded without looking up. "Tell her I'll attend for the minimum required time." "Yes, sir." Vanessa hesitated. "There's also, this came for you, hand-delivered." She placed a small package beside the contracts. Alex glanced at it. No return address, just his name in unfamiliar handwriting. "That's all, Vanessa." When she'd gone, he unwrapped the package with reluctant curiosity. Inside lay a framed photograph. One of the children from Heartspace holding artwork that showed a small figure standing beside a much taller one, both surrounded by colorful swirls. A note accompanied it. "Jamie spoke his first words yesterday. He asked where the tall man who likes Miss Liv went. Some things can't be faked, Mr. Westbrook. Some connections are real whether you choose to believe in them or not." "Elena?" Alex stared at the child's drawing, something cracking in the ice he'd carefully rebuilt around his heart. "Jamie?" The silent boy who had communicated through color, who had watched with solemn eyes whenever Alex visited the center. The boy had noticed what existed between him and Liv, had captured it in childlike strokes that conveyed more truth than all the tabloid speculation. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Westbrook, Rebecca from PR is here with the media monitoring report." "Send her in." Rebecca entered with her usual confident stride, tablet in hand. "The Riverside coverage is trending positively. We've successfully countered most community opposition narratives." "And the other matter?" Alex asked, his voice carefully neutral. "The Martinez situation has died down completely." Rebecca's smile held satisfaction. "The story served its purpose, separating you from an entanglement that was becoming problematic." Alex went very still. "Its purpose?" "The board was concerned about your distraction." Rebecca's tone remained professional despite the personal subject. "The story helped create necessary distance before things went too far." "The story?" Alex's voice dropped to a dangerous softness. "The story that painted Ms. Martinez as a manipulative gold digger. The story with private details and photographs. That story." Rakesh shifted slightly, the first sign of discomfort. Sometimes perception management requires difficult decisions. The foundation couldn't risk association with scandal. "Who provided the information, Rebecca?" "I don't think that's relevant now that—" "Who?" The word cut like a blade. Rebecca straightened, switching to offense. "Your assistant, Vanessa. She's been concerned about Miss Martinez's influence for weeks. She came to me with the information, and I made a judgment call to protect Westbrook's interests." "My interests?" Alex's laugh held no humor. "You presume to determine my interests." "Alex, be reasonable. You weren't thinking clearly. This woman had you making decisions completely out of character. The program changes, the funding approvals, the personal involvement in a minor community project. The board was concerned." "Get out." The words emerged with glacial control. "Excuse me?" "You're fired, Rebecca. Clear your office within the hour." Her face paled. "You can't be serious. I've been with Westbrook for 8 years. I was protecting you." "No." Alex stood, his height suddenly imposing. "You were protecting yourself from change you didn't understand, from a version of me that didn't fit your expectations." After security escorted a protesting Rebecca from the building, Alex called Vanessa into his office. Her confession came quickly, how she'd monitored his calls, photographed his meetings with Liv, fed information to Rebecca out of loyalty to the company. "I thought she was using you," Vanessa insisted, tears streaming down her face. "Everyone could see how different you were around her. It wasn't normal." "Normal?" Alex considered the word. No, it wasn't normal. It was real. After dismissing Vanessa with the same finality he'd shown Rebecca, Alex stood at his window, the child's drawing in his hands. What had he become? A man so armored against pain that he'd rejected truth when it stood before him in tears? A man whose employees believed destroying an innocent woman's reputation was an act of loyalty? The Frost King. The man who'd built an empire on calculated decisions and emotional distance. The man who'd accused Olivia of the very betrayal others had committed against her. Against them both. Shame, an emotion he'd rarely permitted himself, washed over him in a suffocating wave. Liv was packing art supplies for Heartspace's final week in the Riverside location when Maya called. "There's someone here to see you," her sister said, an odd note in her voice. "I'm not really up for visitors, Maya." "Trust me, you want to take this one." A pause. He's sitting in Mom's kitchen looking terrified while she interrogates him about his intentions. Liv's heart stuttered. "Who?" "Alexander Westbrook. In jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like a billionaire and everything like a man who hasn't slept in days." The drive to her family home took 30 minutes that felt like hours. Questions tumbled through Liv's mind. Why now? Why there? What could possibly be left to say after the devastating finality of their last encounter? Her childhood home looked the same as always, warm lights glowing from windows, her mother's garden flourishing despite the season. The sleek black Bentley parked in the driveway was the only indication that anything unusual was happening inside. Liv found them in the kitchen. Her mother, Maya, and Alexander Westbrook seated at the worn oak table where her family had shared meals for decades. The incongruity of seeing him there, in the heart of her family's home, momentarily robbed her of speech. He stood when he saw her, uncertainty replacing his usual confidence. He looked different. Thinner, shadows beneath his eyes, his usual perfect grooming slightly neglected. The sight sent an unwelcome pang through her chest. Olivia. Her name on his lips still held power even now. "We'll give you two some privacy," her mother said, giving Alex a look that clearly communicated consequences should he upset her daughter further. When they were alone, silence stretched between them, the weight of accusations and pain creating an almost physical barrier. "Why are you here?" Liv finally asked. "Because I was wrong." The simple admission seemed to cost him. Vanessa and Rebecca created the story. They provided the photographs, the quotes, the insider information. They thought they were protecting me from changing. Liv absorbed this, the confirmation of what she'd known all along, bringing little satisfaction. "And you believed them without question? You believed I would betray you like that?" Yes, his honesty was brutal, because believing the worst is safer than risking the best. Safer. She repeated the word bitterly. Was it safer, Alex? Did it hurt less to shut me out than to consider I might actually care about you? No, his voice roughened. It was the most painful decision I've ever made. Then why make it? Why not even consider that I was telling the truth? Because I was terrified. The admission seemed torn from him, not of being used or manipulated. I was terrified of how much I needed you to be real. He moved toward her, stopping when she stepped back. "I've spent 6 years convincing myself that isolation equals strength," he continued. "That needing no one meant no one could hurt me. Then you happened, and suddenly everything I'd built my life around seemed hollow. So you destroyed what we had before it could destroy you." Understanding dawned, bringing fresh pain. "That's not strength, Alex. That's cowardice." "Yes." He accepted the judgment without defense. "I came here to tell you you were right. About everything, about me." Liv looked around the kitchen. The family photos on the refrigerator, the mismatched chairs that held generations of memories, the small imperfections that made it home. "Well here? Why my family's home?" "Because I needed to understand." His eyes held hers. "I needed to see where you came from, the place that taught you to trust, to open yourself, to believe in people despite their flaws. I needed to understand what I destroyed." The raw honesty broke something in Liv's carefully maintained composure. Tears she'd refused to shed for days burned her eyes. "You didn't just hurt me, Alex. You confirmed every fear I had that someone like you could never truly see someone like me, that the differences between us were too great to bridge." "I saw you, Olivia." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I saw you more clearly than I've seen anyone in years. That's what terrified me." He moved closer, and this time she didn't retreat. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I don't deserve it. But you deserve the truth. You were never a mistake. What I felt for you, what I still feel, is the most real thing in my life." The confession hung between them, stripped of pretense or calculation. In his eyes, Liv saw what had been missing in their final confrontation: truth, vulnerability, the man beneath the armor, fully exposed at last. "I'm still angry," she admitted. "I'm still hurt. I know. And I don't know if I can trust you again." "I know that too." He reached for her hand, hesitating before making contact. "But I'm asking for the chance to earn that trust back, not with grand gestures or money, but with honesty, with time, with the kind of courage you've shown all along." When his fingers finally touched hers, the connection sent the same electric current through her body that it always had. Some bonds, it seemed, couldn't be severed, even by betrayal. "True strength," Liv said softly, "isn't found in isolation. It's found in the courage to remain open even after being hurt." "Teach me," Alex whispered, his forehead coming to rest against hers. "Teach me how to be that kind of strong." The warm kitchen of her childhood home, surrounded by evidence of a life built on connection rather than walls, Liv made her choice. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility, the beginning of a path forward. Day at a time," she said, her fingers finally closing around his. "We start with truth and see where it leads us." 1 year later. The new Heartspace Center stood as a testament to transformation, not just of the building itself, but of the lives connected to it. What had once been a cramped Victorian now expanded across the entire block, its modern architecture seamlessly blending with the original structure's character. Floor-to-ceiling windows allowed natural light to flood art studios designed specifically for therapeutic work. Gardens surrounded the building, offering outdoor spaces where healing could continue beyond walls. A discreet plaque near the entrance read simply, "The Martinez Westbrook Foundation for Creative Healing." Inside, Liv surveyed the final preparations for tonight's exhibition with a mixture of pride and nervous anticipation. Children's artwork lined the gallery walls, each piece representing a journey from darkness toward light, from silence toward expression. Caterers arranged refreshments while staff positioned the final display placards. "The mayor just confirmed he's attending," Elena reported, tablet in hand. "That makes over 200 confirmed guests, including the governor and 3 national news outlets." "And the children?" Liv asked, priorities unchanged despite the center's growth. "All 17 presenting artists are ready. Jamie insists on wearing his bow tie." Elena smiled. "He says it makes him look professional, like Mr. Alex." The mention of Alex brought an involuntary smile to Liv's face. Their journey back to each other hadn't been easy. Trust, once broken, required patient rebuilding. Honest conversations that sometimes lasted until dawn, small steps forward followed by cautious retreats. The gradual dismantling of defenses on both sides. But with each day the man behind the Frost King emerged more fully, thoughtful, passionate, capable of a depth of feeling that still sometimes overwhelmed him. The Alex who now shared her life bore little resemblance to the isolated billionaire who had once viewed emotional connections as liabilities. "Speaking of Mr. Alex," Elena continued with a knowing smile, "he called. He's finalizing the surprise and will be here soon." The surprise had been Alex's secret project for weeks. Something for the exhibition he refused to reveal, despite Liv's increasingly creative attempts to discover it. As Elena walked away, Liv's hand drifted unconsciously to the delicate emerald pendant at her throat. Alex's gift on the day they'd broken ground for the new center. Not an extravagant diamond that would have once been his style, but a thoughtful choice that matched both the dress she'd worn to the gala and the color of new growth in spring. A symbol of beginnings. The center's success had exceeded even their most optimistic projections. What began as a local program now served as a model being implemented in cities across the country. Liv had testified before Congress about art therapy's effectiveness for childhood trauma. Research partnerships with 3 universities documented outcomes that attracted international attention. Yet, amid the professional triumphs, it was the personal transformation that mattered most. Liv had grown into a confident leader who navigated boardrooms and policy meetings without compromising her compassionate approach. And Alex had discovered that vulnerability, far from weakening him, had unlocked parts of himself long suppressed: creativity, empathy, the capacity for joy that had been dormant since childhood. The sound of excited whispers drew Liv's attention to the entrance, where Alex had appeared with a large covered frame. Children immediately surrounded him, their initial wariness of the tall, serious man long since replaced by genuine affection. He knelt to speak with Jamie, their conversation punctuated by the boys' enthusiastic nodding. Watching them, Liv felt the familiar warmth that still surprised her sometimes. The knowledge that this man, who had once calculated human worth in profit margins, now spent Saturday mornings teaching art classes, and knew each child's favorite colors and personal stories. "You're staring, Ms. Martinez," Alex said as he approached, echoing words from their earliest days with a smile that transformed his features. "Just appreciating the view, Mr. Westbrook." She nodded toward the covered frame. "Is that the mysterious surprise?" "It is." His expression grew serious. "But it's not just for the exhibition. It's for you." He set the frame on a nearby easel and drew her slightly away from the bustling preparations. "This past year has taught me more than the previous 32 combined," he said quietly. "About courage, about purpose, about the kind of man I want to be." "You've changed," Liv acknowledged, touching his face gently. "Because you showed me a different way to live." He took her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. Not behind walls, but in connection. Not in fear of pain, but in pursuit of meaning. With his free hand, he removed the covering from the frame. Liv gasped. The artwork wasn't a painting, but a mosaic, hundreds of tiny fragments creating a larger image. Looking closer, she recognized pieces of children's artwork from Heartspace, photographs of the center's evolution, snippets of notes she'd written Alex during their collaboration. At the center stood 2 figures, one tall, one shorter, surrounded by a community of smaller figures, all connected by swirling lines of color. "Jamie helped me design it," Alex explained. "He said this is how he sees us now, not alone but part of something bigger." Tears blurred Liv's vision as she recognized the evolution of Jamie's original drawing. The tiny yellow dot of hope amid darkness now expanded into a vibrant world of connection. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "There's one more piece." Alex reached into his pocket and removed a small velvet box. "If you're willing." He opened it to reveal a ring, not the ostentatious diamond his wealth might have suggested, but an emerald surrounded by a delicate pattern that matched the mosaic's flowing lines. "Olivia Martinez," he said, voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. "You shattered every wall I built and showed me that real strength comes from opening yourself to love, not hiding from it. Will you marry me?" The gallery around them faded as Liv looked into the eyes of the man who had journeyed so far from isolation to connection, the man who had learned that the greatest risk in life isn't loving too much, but loving too little. "Yes," she answered simply. "Yes to all of it." As Alex slipped the ring onto her finger, applause erupted around them. The children's staff and early arriving guests had witnessed the moment, their celebration a testament to the community that had formed around Heartspace's mission. Later that evening, as distinguished guests mingled with children proudly explaining their artwork, Liv found Alex standing slightly apart, watching the scene with quiet wonder. "Having second thoughts?" she teased, slipping her arm through his. "The opposite." He drew her closer. I'm thinking about how close I came to missing all of this, how one decision to trust changed everything. For both of us, Liv acknowledged. I was so certain we were too different to find common ground. Instead, we found common purpose. Alex's gaze swept across the gallery where lives had been transformed, including his own. And something far more valuable. As if on cue, Jamie approached, bow tie slightly askew, eyes bright with excitement. Muslims, Mr. Alex, the governor wants to see my Phoenix painting. He tugged at both their hands, naturally assuming they would follow together. Alex exchanged a glance with Liv, the love between them visible to anyone watching. Lead the way, Jamie, we're right behind you. In that moment, surrounded by the evidence of what courage and connection could build, the journey from that first contentious community meeting to this shared future seemed both impossible and inevitable. A reminder that sometimes the most unexpected love creates the most profound transformation. Even the most frozen hearts can thaw when the right person shows them the warmth they've been missing all along. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Love Scene Diaries for more emotional journeys that remind us all of love's power to transform even the most guarded hearts. Leave a comment sharing your own experience with unexpected love, and join our community of romance lovers.